Welcome back. In the previous two videos, we saw how can you make open source contribution in 6 simple steps. In the first video, we saw how to make open source contribution by making a sample contribution to this test repository. Once again, please note that this repository does not participate in Hacktoberfest. This is just for your practice if you are a first time contributor. This is just to let you know how to contribute to open source projects. Now in the second video, we actually contributed to a real open source project. In that, we saw what steps can we take to actually learn and understand the code base, how can we find the maximum information from the issue that is given, and so on. So now I am going to tell you how can you find various issues or open source work. So I'm going to tell you a few tips on finding the open source work. So again, as you remember from the previous video, the first step was finding your project or finding an issue to work upon. So of course, this is very, very logical that if you don't even have an open source project to work on, if you don't even have an open source project to contribute to, where will you make the contribution? So I suggest two ways to find your open source contribution issues or projects. So first way could be finding individual projects, and second way could be finding open source organizations which suit you, which matches with your skills or in which you want to contribute to. So the first way is individual projects, and the second way is working specifically on the projects by some single or multiple organizations, open source organizations like Fosatia and so on. So for the first way, I'm going to tell you a few websites where you can find your next open source issue to work upon. So one of the most famous ones is codetriage.com. So let's go into it. Codetriage basically helps mention various issues that you can work upon. Then the second one is up for grabs. So it lists the projects with issues that can be resolved by beginners. Basically the issues which are tagged with this specific label up for grab. You can filter project by a name, you can filter project by a label, you can filter by tag as well. And it will give you all the results. This is a very, very good website if you are looking for beginner friendly projects. Then the first timers only, again this one is only for first timers. These will be some very, very simple open source contributions. So yes, if you are an experienced, you might not want to go to first timers issues. Again, here's another one which is awesome for beginners. This is also a list of beginner friendly repositories. And the fifth one is interesting. This one mentions the list of PRs that needs to be reviewed. So here it's not about an issue which you can raise a PR for. It's about reviewing the open issues. It's not only open source contributions is not only about making the contribution. It's also about reviewing others' contributions as well. Because if there are two benefits of it. First of all, if there's no reviewer, the code quality will not be maintained. But the second best benefit is that when you review others' PRs, you get to know more about the project, you get to know more about the technology that is being used, you upskill yourself and so on. So reviewing the PRs is also super important. Then sixth one is the direct GitHub search, which is my favorite. So GitHub has an advanced search feature. If you click here, you can go to GitHub advanced search, or you can use the prefixes as well, and you can mention everything. You can, for example, let's say if you want some code that is only in JavaScript, just mention this and start searching. So you can mention every single thing here, and you can filter based on a lot of criterias. For example, with this many stars, greater than 100 and less than 200, between 0 to 100, with this many folks, between 50 to 100, of size, repository size in KBs, push to date with license, then all the license are listed here, and so on. So you don't need any of these websites You don't need them. You have the GitHub search, GitHub advanced search, and you can find issues for yourself. So here's how we can find issues to work upon in the individual contributing projects. Now the second way is, if you're looking for participating in GSOC or something like that, or any other open source program, it would be best to go to their archives. So let's say if you're applying for Outreachy, or if let's say you're applying for any other summer of code or winter of code program, just have a look at which GitHub orgs were contributing to it. The GSOC is one of the most famous open source programs, so let's go through that one. So what you can do is you can go through the list of organizations, you can filter them based on your languages that you know and based on the ideas and so on, and then find an org that matches with your ideologies, that matches with the skills that you have and the skills that they need, and so on. And once you find your organization, start working on the projects that they have. So if you do so, following this path might be a little more beneficial, because if you are aiming for GSOC, of course, you know that if you are continuously contributing to a single organization, the chances and the probability of you getting selected in GSOC through that organization, of course, it increases a lot. So yes, this is something that might help you if you are aiming for GSOC. But if you are just contributing to open source for fun, GitHub search is best for you. And I would want to mention another fantastic resource by Vinit. So he has created a repository, Hacktoberfest 2021, in which he has mentioned a lot of repositories. So you can always contribute to his repositories, and I think he is mentoring as well. So yes, this is something really amazing work. Huge shout out to his efforts. He is doing an amazing job in the community. So that's it. I hope you were able to find a lot of issues that you can work upon, and I think that now you would be well equipped to find an open source issue and start working on it and raise a PR and make your own open source contributions.